Good morning from the Isle of Skye. Well, this morning I've come up to Needle at the Kerrang and I've got a particular shoot I'm doing this morning. Now, if you watched my previous video where I was up Anchalat camping overnight, you've heard me talk about weight saving, in particular the camera gear and the lenses. Now, since I bought the Canon R5 back in 2020, the only wide-angle zoom available for it, the native RF lens, was the 15-35 2.8, which I have on here at the moment. Since then, Canon have brought out the RF14-35 f4, and it's 300 grams lighter than this lens, so that can make a big difference when you're going up a mountain, whether you're camping overnight or not, because it can be a slog at times, and weight is important when you're doing that. So I was toying with the idea of getting the lens, and yes, in my pocket here I have the 14-35 f4 lens. So this morning I'm going to compare both lenses. I've had the 14-35, I think for about 2 months now. I've used it a few times, but I haven't been able to compare the two lenses just because the conditions were quite fast acting, shall we say. Whereas this morning, it's pretty cloudy, there's no light, so nothing's really going to change too much in between times of getting shots with a 15-35, changing. I'm going to basically shoot at different apertures, f4, f8, f11, and then I'm going to change the lens and do the same with the 14-35. So the light's not going to change much, if at all, at the moment. So that's going to be good because it's more of a controlled environment. And the reason I'm standing here is because my composition is actually at 15mm. So I'm using the widest angle, the widest focal length of this wide angle lens, and then I'll shoot with a 14-35 at 14-15, and then I'll change my position, shoot a little bit narrower, and just go from there. And then when I'm back home, I will compare them. So let's get into it. I'm shooting at f4 at the moment, ISO 100, and that's my... Now I'm going to use autofocus. I'm going to focus on the needle because enough depth of field, maybe not at f4, but that's where I would normally focus in this scene. I'm going to put my 2-second delay on, which it already is on. So ISO 100, the exposure time is whatever it needs to be to get the histogram looking good, and that's all good. Yeah, so my first shot, I'm going to use autofocus just because it's quicker. I would normally manually focus, but this morning I'm just going to autofocus because it's a lot quicker. So here we go, f4. Now I'll go down to f5.6. f8. So these are just one-stop increments, so I can easily change my exposure time quick enough. And there we go. So now I'm going to change over to the 14-35 and go through the same steps. Okay, so I now have the 14-35 lens on. I'm just going to go through the same. Again, to begin with, I'm actually going to shoot at 14mm because I shot at 15mm, which is at the extreme of the 15-35. So I'm going to shoot at 14mm on here, the extreme. And then I'll probably go down to 15mm as well, just so I've got the same angle of view. So shooting at f4, exposure time is the same as previously, which is good. The light levels haven't changed. 5.6. And f8. And f11. So then I'm going to go into 15mm. I'm just going to guess to begin with this 15mm will be, I think it's about there. And I can check with the first shot, check the data, see what it says, go back down to 1/25 of a second, yep, all good. And that is shown as 15mm, yep, 5.6, 8, and f11. There we go. Now the path here, I've got the path curving round Needle here, and that's relatively close to me, but it's not the most important part of the scene. It should be sharp, especially at f8 and the f11. However, I have shot previously here at the Kerrang where I had some ferns and bracken and really quite close to the camera, so that was a good test for that. I also shot down at Sliggahin at the waterfalls there, so I used the lens there, tested it there. And actually a couple of days ago, I was up in the Trotnish Ridge, had a pretty cool morning. I was using the lens there as well, so I'll show you those photos as well. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the camera off the tripod. I'm going to actually head further up the hill to a spot where I shoot around about 24mm. Because at the extremes of a zoom lens, they're not as good quality. So going into 24mm, it's roughly about the middle of the zoom. So that should be a good test for them as well. So yeah, I'll get the camera off the tripod and head up the hill. So I thought I would, seeing as I'm going back down that way after I finish this, I'm just bringing the camera up on the tripod. I've got the other lens in my pocket. One thing I haven't mentioned already is my intention is to choose, well, hopefully if the 14-35 performs well enough, is to sell the, that's the 14-35, is to sell the 15-35 to recoup my money, because there's no need to have both lenses. Yes, the 2.8 can be good for astro, but I don't shoot that often enough. So yeah, obviously I'm not made of money. So I bought this with the intention of hopefully this is going to be the one that I keep, and which is going to be better, like I say, weight saving for bigger walks up into the mountains and what have you. So yeah, that's the idea behind it. Okay, so I've got my composition set. I'm actually at about 22-23mm. That's okay. And start off with a 14-35. I'm actually shooting the video at the moment on the 15-35 just because it gives me that nicer view compared to the 24-105, which I've now got in my pocket. So I'll swap over lenses in a minute. So rather than bore you with me taking the shots again, I'm just going to go through it. I'm going to switch the lenses and then go through the same again. F4, 5.6, F8, F11. Okay, that's all done. Now I'm going to have to change lenses around, put the 14-35 on the video camera and the 15-35 on here, and do exactly the same again. So back down to F4, got the 15-35 on now, and that was 1/40 of a second, 22mm, so just go through the same again. Closing ups down at 1-stop increments down to F11. And finally F11. There we go. That's my basic test done. Shooting at the extremes of the focal length and then roughly about the middle. So time to head home, download them onto the computer, and we'll have a look at them there. I've downloaded the raw files onto my computer. I've got them in Lightroom, so let's look at them side by side. So on the left here, we've got the 15-35 shot, and on the right hand side, the 14-35 shot. Now this is at the extreme end of the zoom, so 15mm and 14mm, and the first one we have here is f4. Now I focused on the needle itself in the middle of the frame, so yeah, both images perfectly sharp. But let's have a look at the corners. I'm going to go to the bottom right hand corner here because there's lots of detail here with the grass. I wouldn't expect them to be sharp at all, and they're not this soft. The foreground was relatively close to me, so yeah, soft. I'm going to bypass the 5.6 shot and go straight to the f8. Now, to me, surprisingly, the 14-35 shot is actually looking a little bit sharper than the 15-35 on the left here. Let's go to f11. And yeah, to me, the f11 shot on the 14-35 is actually sharper than the 15-35. And that's actually a big surprise to me because the 15-35 is a much more expensive lens. Okay, well, that's at the extreme wide angle. Let's go to 22mm. So the second shot I did. Zoom into the needle. Yep, perfectly sharp on both lenses. Let's have a look at the bottom right hand again because we've got grass. And the 15-35 looks a little bit sharper. I'm going to bypass the 5.6 shot here. I'm going to go straight to f8 again. Now the 15-35 does look much sharper than the 14-35. So this is like the opposite end here. I've gone from the wide angle to roughly getting to the middle of the zoom range. And the 15-35 does look much sharper. So let's have a look at f11. And yeah, the 15-35 is definitely sharper. I mean, the 14-35 is pretty sharp in the corner, but not as sharp as the 15-35. It's not what I was expecting because the 14-35 was sharper at the wide angle extreme. What's your decision, I hear you say? I don't know. That's kind of thrown a little bit of a curveball, but I mean, it's not mega soft in the corner in the 14 to 35mm lens. So what I have done is I've previously shot and post-shot since taking these shots. I've been out with a 14 to 35mm lens. So let's have a look at some images. Now these are kind of what I call more real-world examples where I've gone up deliberately to get some hopefully good shots. So this one here is at 14mm at f8. I don't know why I shot at f8 because the foreground was really quite close to me. This was just a handheld shot, and I probably should have shot at f11, f13, maybe even f16. I could have perfectly handheld this shot at that. But let's have a look at the heather here. This is an important part of the scene to me. That is sharp. The bottom left-hand corner is not sharp, but it's pretty sharp. Bottom right-hand corner to me is what I call acceptably sharp. So this is something I don't hear talked about a lot, is technically sharp and acceptably sharp. So technically sharp will be where you actually focused. Acceptably sharp is where is acceptably sharp to you, and that is acceptably sharp to me. The corners there. Let's have a look at the top left-hand corner. I probably can't see too much because it's pretty dark, but yeah, it looks sharp enough to me. Well, let's move on to another image, and this was shot at 18mm, just zoomed in a little bit. The ferns, pin sharp to me. There's a bit of softness in that just here, but I think that's just, yeah, I mean, it's probably movement or something. I don't know. I mean, it's actually 1/500 of a second. But yeah, I probably should have shot this at maybe f16 again because the foreground was very close to me, and I'm zooming in a little bit. So yeah, let's move on to a 35mm shot at f11. Let's go to the bottom right hand corner first. That looks very sharp to me, so acceptably sharp. So yeah, a final image for now. I'll show some more images at the end, but I just want to talk about this one. So this is actually f13, it's 0.6 of a second, and there was a little bit of a breeze. So lo and behold, some of the vegetation was moving and it's not sharp. So this is something that I've never done before and what I would never do again probably. I took a second photograph at 125th of a second, same aperture, and the vegetation is sharp. So the bottom left-hand corner is very sharp to me. Bottom right-hand corner, very sharp. So f13 seems to be a good aperture when you zoomed in on this lens. And then what I did was I blended the two together just to show you the smoothness of the water and the sharpness of the vegetation. So, well, I haven't quite made my mind up yet. I think I'm going to have to use it more, even though I've used it a fair amount before I did this test, and even more so after the test. Like I said, I'll show you some more photographs at the end. So yeah, I haven't made my decision yet. I'm going to make a decision soon because I've got to sell one of them. So yeah, well, hopefully you liked this video. Hopefully it helped you in some way if you're thinking about getting the 14 to 35mm lens. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up. Any comments, as always, appreciated. If you don't already subscribe, please do consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do subscribe, hit the bell notification to be notified of when another video is uploaded. And until that one, bye bye.